Limitless and unfiltered friends. You are hanging out with me, Maria DeCarmo, today. And today I want to talk about something that has been on my heart to share with you, something that I have personally been dealing with, which is personal development and outgrowing circles of friendships, outgrowing certain family members, just outgrowing spaces that you are in and normalizing, what that feels like, what that looks like, and how to navigate through those situations. I wanted to share with you like exactly what that looks like because the thing is, personal development doesn't just change your habits, okay? It changes your tolerance. It changes your tolerance to individuals. It changes your tolerance to other people's habits. It changes your tolerance to how people treat you. And in essence, that starts to change you. Like personal development and outgrowing spaces doesn't mean that you wake up one day feeling super attached or like arrogant or like feeling like you're better than other people. You just start to become more aware. You start to wake up more aware of things that are no longer in the same energetic frequency and vibration as you. And I just want to normalize that awareness, you waking up with that awareness and slowly becoming more and more aware every day as you go through your personal development journey, that can feel lonely before it feels empowering. And I think a lot of like if you resort to self-help books or like personal development books, things that are supposed to grow your mind, grow your heart, expand your vision, expand your horizons, a lot of people don't talk about that aspect. They don't talk about the fact that the more personal development you do and the more awareness you achieve, that first kind of like treading into that water can feel very lonely. But I promise you, being on the other side of that, it is very empowering once you do um, kind of reach that next level version of yourself. And the thing is, I honestly feel and know that personal development is not something you do once and you kind of just forget about it. It's not like something you read in a book and then you're done and, apply the things. It's an application of the things that you are learning through your day-to-day cycles. It's every single day you are growing. It's every single day you become more aware of your surroundings, of you, of your internal battles, what people call shadow work, right? Like you're working on you, you're working on your mindset, you're working on a different perspective of how to look at the world. And that is just something that you're going to do every single day. Like, guys, personal development is something that I preach all the time because I am not the same person that I was 5 years ago. I am not the same person that I was 2 years ago. I'm not even the same person I was 2 months ago. Why? Because personal development is something that you continuously do in order to grow and expand yourself. Now, what do I mean when I say, personal development can lead to outgrowing spaces or outgrowing people? Now, some people think that this is like super dramatic. Like one day you wake up and you're like, that's it, I want new friends, or that's it, like I'm no longer aligned with my partner or my spouse or whatever it is. And unfortunately, that's not how outgrowing actually looks like or feels like. Like it actually happens in quiet shifts. So, what do I mean by that? So, conversations that you have with your friends or conversations that you have with your spouse or the colleagues that you have, those start to feel very repetitive or surface level or draining your energy. Like you don't feel good in those situations. You don't feel good in conversations. So you start to edit yourself out in order for you to keep the peace. And my friends, let me tell you, there's nothing worse than you can do than dim your light to make other people continue to feel comfortable, because then that means you internally know how uncomfortable you're feeling, but you're dimming yourself in order to not, cause a ruckus or ruffle any feathers. The thing is, that won't change the more that you do personal development or start to outgrow these spaces. That's actually going to intensify. And how do you know when you're outgrowing spaces or when you're outgrowing people? You start to understand and realize that you start to leave interactions that you have with certain people, you leave those feeling super heavy, like dense, like just like it's a weight on your shoulders or on your heart or on your chest. Sometimes it's unexplainable. When you feel expanded, when you're feeling joy, when you're feeling inspired, when you're feeling, happy, like peace, all of those things are an indication that you are in the correct circle and that you haven't outgrown that space. Anything contrary to that, like if you feel drained after a conversation, if you feel like, oh my God, that was so stressful after you've left a conversation with your friends, your spouse, whoever it is, that is what actually outgrowing that space looks like. That's what outgrowing people looks like. Why? Because as you continue your personal development journey, you start to crave depth. You start to crave accountability and honesty, okay? And sometimes that makes you feel like you're the odd one out. Like, okay, give you the perfect example is when you meet up with your girlfriends, are you all complaining about your spouses? Are they all complaining and not, as you do personal development, are you now realizing that like they're all complaining about their spouses, but you don't complain about your spouse because you have a good communication. You've actually spoke to your spouse about your personal development. We'll get into that in a second. But like, is that what you're surrounding yourself with? And then if that's the case, this is just an example, but it could be about anything. It could be about politics, religion, whatever. Okay, any conversation that you're having with friends, if you feel like you are the odd one out and you can't contribute to that, that is probably a sign that you have outgrown that space. Because if you feel like, ugh, like I don't really want to talk like that, I don't really want to speak like that, that's really not my language, my friends, that just means that through your journey, you're changing your routines, you're changing your priorities, you're changing your mindset. And the fact that you feel that ick when you're surrounded by certain people in conversation, that means that are starting to outgrow that space, okay? See, the thing is, outgrowing doesn't mean that you are better than the people that you are surrounded with. Like if you feel like you're outgrowing the space, that doesn't mean that you're better. It just means that now you're different. It means that maybe you're taking steps in your life where you are developing a different mindset, where you are developing these different priorities, where you are developing a different perspective of life, and maybe the group of people that you are surrounding yourself with, or that the partner that you have, they don't think that way because they're not doing that work, and that's not up to you. And again, I think I'm gonna touch on all these things because it's just all coming out of my head right now. It's difficult, guys. The personal development is difficult, and I know, and I hope that this is making sense for you. I know that like my brain is just all over the place and want to go and want to go, want to go. So I'm gonna like try to calm it down and try to explain it to you. So I don't want you to think that like if you're doing personal development, or if you're on the if you're on the flip side of this and you feel like maybe a friend of yours not really vibing with you anymore, the energy isn't there, they're speaking differently, they're carrying themselves differently, instead of you judging them or wanting to be like, oh, they think that they're better than them, why don't you have a conversation and ask them like, what is going on? Like, what are you doing differently because you sound different, because you carry yourself differently, because you don't interact in our conversations as much? Maybe this friend of yours is no longer wanting to hang out with you as often. Ask yourself, what is it that about me? This is the awareness piece. What is it about me that is now causing my friend to not want to hang out with me, instead of attacking that person? So that was on the flip side, okay? But what does it feel like for you? Because I went through this already, and like I said, I think this is work that we continuously do. But some of the things that came up for me during that season of why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling is when I started to feel guilty for wanting more. And that can come in conversations with your friends, that can come in conversations with your spouse, that can come in conversations with your parents, where when you want to express that you're wanting more out of your life and it seems like you can't, or you have a fear or a guilt around that because you feel like the response back is going to be like, what do you mean you have a good life, like what are you complaining about, or like any of that. So feeling guilty for wanting more is usually a sign of you outgrowing a space or outgrowing a group of people, because you're no longer wanting to stay in that energy. You want more out of life. It also can feel like sadness, okay? Because it can feel like sadness because the certain circles that you were in or the conversations that you were having, that once felt safe for you, but now it feels not comfortable, not safe in that. And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to like really grasp, and that's a hard thing to like understand and acknowledge truthfully for yourself, because you kind of don't want to feel sad because you know that you're growing, but at the same time it's inevitable to feel sad because what once used to be a space that you really enjoyed and like loved, essentially, you're no longer feeling that. So it's okay to feel that sadness. It can also feel super confusing. It can feel super confusing when you are outgrowing spaces because, for example, for me, when I was outgrowing certain friends, I remember that I would come home and I would tell my husband, like, am I being selfish? Am I being greedy for like not wanting to share my energy anymore with these people that once felt like safety to me? Like, am I being selfish, or am I being honest with myself of like, okay, am I really outgrowing? Like, these were conversations that I had with Juan, a few years back and just recently, of like, is it that I'm too selfish, or is it that I've truly just outgrown this space? And 9 times out of 10, my friend, it's that you're outgrowing the space. And unfortunately, sometimes this is where people like really back out from personal development because they start to get really scared of being misunderstood. It gets really lonely. It gets, it's scary. Lonely even when you're surrounded by a ton of people. Like that part, like all of these feelings, I want to normalize for you because it's like, how do I describe this? It's like an internal battle, like an internal tug of war between loyalty to the people in the circle and the space that you once were a part of and the tug of war with your self respect. So, do you continue to choose loyalty out of loyalty because you've been friends with these people or you've been in this circle for a long period of time? Or do you choose self respect because you know that you're growing, you know that you have this journey that you're on, and like you know that energetically you no longer are on the same level of these people. Again, this is not meaning that you are better than your group of friends. It just means that you are becoming a different version of you. My friends, you can love people deeply. You can love your partner deeply. You can love your friends deeply. You can love certain family members deep. And at the same time, still no longer belong in that same version of life. And I think this is the hardest part, one of the hardest parts in personal development, in outgrowing spaces, is realizing that like you don't have to cut people off. You can love them where they are at and still understand that you no longer belong in that same area of their life where they're at because you've outgrown that. Those two things can be true. Just because you are outgrowing a space, you are outgrowing friends, you are outgrowing a spouse, and that's one of the hardest ones. Just because of that, that doesn't mean that you love them less or that you don't love them at all. You can love those people very much with your heart, with all of your energy, and still acknowledge that you no longer fit that version of their life and of your life. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make during their personal development journey and like understanding when they are outgrowing spaces is that they wait until the resentment inside them explodes. And I'm talking about you on your personal development journey. Sometimes you can also feel resentment towards other people. Like, why aren't they growing? Like, why don't they think like me? Like, why don't they see the vision for my life like I see for myself? Why don't they view life the way that I view it? And you hold all those things in, and then, my friends, your emotions are going to explode. They're going to come out. And I think that when we wait for that explosion, that's when things get really ugly. And that's when, like, relationships can be severed and like hurt because people don't understand how to communicate with their loved ones. You start ghosting instead of actually communicating, when things are happening and you feel this energetic shift inside of you. A lot of people fear that having that conversation. So instead of talking and communicating, they ghost or they shrink back instead of standing rooted in themselves. Like once you start standing rooted in yourself, you can have those conversations, and I'm not saying that they're going to be easier, okay, because there's an emotional attachment to conversations when you want to have these, but they definitely become more manageable. You'll be able to understand how to speak to people. And here's the other thing to all of this. A lot of us that are in the personal development space, that are in this journey, and I say a lot of us because I'm going to include myself in this, and I've done this many times before. Again, this is like a constant thing you do. I have been guilty of expecting people around me to evolve on my timeline. That just hit me maybe more than it hit you. This one's a crazy one because I definitely have done that in my past. I definitely am currently still doing that with certain people in my life. And this is really tough when it is your spouse. It's really tough when it's your kids. It's really tough when it's a mom, a dad, a sibling. It's really tough when it's your best friend. It's really tough when it's someone that you love so much and that you can see that they're not evolving at the same rate as you, at the same timeline as you. And maybe you can see things for them. Maybe you can see and have a different perspective of their own life for them, but they haven't seen it yet for themselves. And so you hold on to that in kind of like frustration and anger because you are expecting them to evolve on your timeline, not theirs. That, my friends, is very difficult, okay? Avoidance of talking of all this is still a choice that you make, and it usually costs more than being honest with people. I'm speaking from experience when I tell you that once you start feeling like you are outgrowing spaces, the best thing that you can do is sit down with someone or people or groups or your spouse or whoever it is and have the really tough conversations. And listen, let the emotions flow out. If the conversations lead to tears and lead to you expressing exactly how you feel, that's exactly what your body needs to be doing because you are more aware of that. Okay? Avoiding the tough conversations when you feel like you are outgrowing spaces, outgrowing your friends, outgrowing your spouse is not going to make the situation better. You are actually going to feel more detached the longer you wait to have this conversation. So, how do we handle outgrowing people without becoming super hardened on the inside, okay? Because this whole transitional period that you go through, it's about being and staying soft, but at the same time staying strong. Okay, so you need to ground yourself because you need to understand that you are allowed to evolve without the permission of anyone. Of anyone. You do not need your parents' permission to evolve. You do not need your siblings' permission to evolve. You don't even need your spouse's permission to evolve. No one's permission. Why? Because you don't owe anyone the old version of you. You don't owe anyone that. When you start to evolve, people like to make commentary about like, oh, you've changed. My friend, change is the only constant that we have in this world. When people used to tell me that, I used to get really triggered by that. I used to get really upset about like, you've changed. And I would be like, no, I'm the same person. I still love all my friends. I still love all this. I still love blah, 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 blah. Trying to over explain my evolving. Okay? And the thing is, when you evolve, people might feel threatened by that. They might feel insecure about your evolution and therefore expect the old version of you. But you don't owe anyone that. Once you start evolving, you don't owe anyone the old version of you because that would mean dimming your light. Okay? Discomfort doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong, whether that's discomfort on their end, discomfort on your end. Because, my friends, not everyone is meant to come with you on this personal development journey. Not everyone is meant to come with you when you evolve. But some people are meant to meet you again later on in life. And that's really hard. Okay, that's really, I know I'm now laughing because I'm pretty sure I have said that this is really hard for all of these things that I'm mentioning. But my friends, this is coming from my heart and I'm telling you, the personal development space, the personal development journey, like your evolution and growth is not an easy path, but it is so worth it if you continue to stay the course. And the hardest part of this journey is realizing that yes, although some people and circles and friends and spouse and family, although some people have felt so safe for you before, not everyone is meant to come with you at the same rate of your own evolution, and that's okay. But it's really tough when it's people that are close to you. It's really tough when it's a spouse. It's really tough when it's your kids. You got to let them just do their journey on their own because eventually they will meet you again later. Some people will never do the personal development journey. Some people will never evolve. Some people are going to stay doing the same mundane things over and over and over again on repeat, on a loop, repetitively until the day they die. And that's not on you to do that for them. It's not on you to try and make them change. If you are changing, if you are growing, if you are in the personal development realm, you know that your evolution is going to be for the betterment of the people around you. It can actually open the door for others around you to take their own personal development journey, but you can't control that. Okay? Like I was saying to you guys before, a lot of these experiences that I've had where at first they used to trigger me so much, like I felt like I was just over explaining to people like, no, I'm still the same, but I just think a little differently and like trying to drag people along in my journey. And I just need you to understand that you have to stop over explaining yourself and over explaining your growth as you evolve. You need to release the need to be validated. And I felt personally attacked when I heard this somewhere. I don't remember where I heard that, but I remember feeling personally attacked because I was like, I don't need validation from anyone. But in reality, it is human nature to want to feel validated by others. It's just human nature. It is. Okay. So when I tell you to release the need to be validated, I mean this with all of the love in the world. That is another level of awareness where you reach that you're just like, oh, I totally have been feeling like I needed to be validated. But in that need to feel validated, you can be hurt by the people closest to you because you're not standing strong in your own growth journey. Okay, you need to release that, and you need to start investing your energy where there's curiosity and mutual respect towards you. If you tell someone like, hey, I'm really going through this, like I'm seeing things differently, my mindset is shifting, like my energy feels different, and you're met with like, no way, what are you doing? Like, tell me how you're feeling. Like the curiosity and respecting like that you're feeling that way, that's where you need to invest your energy. If you explain to someone that your energy, that you're changing, like all the things that I just said, like I feel like I'm different, that I'm seeing the world in a different light, that like, I'm not the same person, I'm like doing all these things, and you're met with, well, like that's just weird, or like, really, like maybe you shouldn't do that, or all, like just you feel that negativity or that resistance from people, that's not where you want to invest your energy, my friend, okay? You need to let relationships change shape instead of forcing them to stay the same. Just let people go if they're not willing to feel curious and meet you with mutual respect when you express your feelings with them. Let those relationships change. It's okay for them to change. So, I want to talk to you guys now that I've given you all of that. I want to talk to you guys about when, because I've been asked like, okay, I get that you're going to change circles, and I get that you're going to feel misaligned with some friends or somebody in your circle. I get that. I understand that, Maria, but what happens when I want to save that relationship or want to salvage that relationship? And this is where it needs to get real and mature. And it's very difficult. Again, here we go. It's very difficult to do this, but you first have to get honest with yourself. That's like the number one thing, okay? And sometimes when I'm talking to people, the way that I've done this, the way that I constantly do this, when I want to salvage a friendship or relationship, when I want to talk to my husband about deep things that like I'm going through that he's maybe not experiencing because we're not on the same personal development journey, and like I'm giving you guys this example and being vulnerable to show you that you don't have to cut off relationships or like end your romantic relationship with your spouse because you're not on the same personal development journey. I have understood that I am on a different personal development journey, that my evolution is at a different level than my husband's, but it's not a relationship that I just want to leave on the wayside. And so what do you do when you want to save a relationship, or want to salvage, I should say? Like I said, the first thing you have to do is get honest with yourself. And this is where I tell people, pull out your damn journal, start to free write. What do I mean by free write? Just start writing. Like, people think that journaling has to be with prompts, and although prompts are incredible, they are incredible, especially when you have like writer's block or you feel like, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to write on here. It's also a good thing to get into the habit of just brain dumping. Open up your journal and start brain dumping. And then you want to start asking yourself questions to get honest with yourself. So, do I want connection, or do I just want familiarity? Am I avoiding discomfort, or am I honoring alignment? And then you have to get real clear of like, okay, what does alignment mean for you? So you can go down like different areas of these questions too. These are things that I've implemented in my journal, and it's just like, they're hard to answer, and you have to take time, and this isn't something you do when your kids are running around you and like touching you and all the things. And I'm telling you this because I've tried to do these journals when my kids are all around me, and no, you need some time alone to do this. Something else I've asked myself in my journals is like, have I communicated clearly what I am feeling, or am I expecting them to read my mind? Guys, this is huge. This is huge, and it's especially huge for romantic relationships. Sometimes especially if you live with a person or you've been together for such a long period of time, you expect your partner to read your mind. Well, I shouldn't have to say anything because you should know. Well, no, friends, okay? And this is something that I'm telling you because I've experienced this and still currently working on it. And I've been the one that has been like, well, you should know that. Well, how should the other person know that? They can't read minds. People can't read minds. So ask yourself, have I communicated clearly with my partner, or have I just pretended like they should know everything? And then you want to communicate with your partner or with your circle of friends. I'm going to go with partner because obviously this is a topic that I can talk to you guys about between my husband and I, but this will relate to your friendships as well, actually, because I've also been through this with friendships, okay? So how do you communicate what you're feeling and what you're expecting from people? Not expecting, but what's going on with you? How do you communicate your personal development journey without blaming the other person? Because language does matter, okay? So you can't just tell somebody like, well, I feel different and that's that. Like, really focus in on exactly what you want to say. It could be something like, well, hey, like, I'm in a season of life right now where I'm like really focused on my growth and personal development, and I feel like I'm a little bit disconnected, but I wanted to talk to you about it instead of like just letting it build. Because guilty, I've done that. I've just let tensions build between friendships, and then it just, at the end of it, it's just like, well, I don't understand what's going on, you know what I mean? And then you have to kind of backtrack when you let it build and try to understand that person's perspective as well. So talk, communicate. You can say something like, hey, I really value you and I value everything that you believe with and stand for, but I also feel like I'm changing and I don't want to distance ourselves, but I do want us to understand what's going on. Guys, these are hard conversations, hard, difficult. These aren't things that like they teach you in any school, and like honestly, this takes a lot of emotional maturity. A lot of emotional maturity because it takes accountability on both ends. You could also say something like, I don't know, like listen, this isn't about you doing anything wrong, because sometimes when you put yourself in the other person's shoes and you start to distance yourself or you start to explain that like, oh, I'm changing or whatever, they might feel like they're doing something wrong. So affirm to them that they're not, if they're not, right? So like, this isn't about anything that you're doing wrong, because there isn't. I just don't want to pretend that I'm the same person that I was. That's hard. Those are hard things to say. Imagine you saying that to like your group of friends that you've been friends for 10 years, and suddenly you're feeling like you're outgrowing this space. To have the courage to say that takes a certain level of emotional maturity. But that is the level that you get to when you start evolving and going on this personal development journey. You're sharing essentially you're sharing your experience with them. You're not issuing an ultimatum to them. You're not like, well, if you don't change, then I'm not going to be your friend. Like that, first of all, that's like childish and like high school. Okay, well, you can't do this and we're not going to be friends. No, you want to share with them what exactly it is that you are experiencing, but not giving them an ultimatum of like, well, if you don't change, then I'm not going to be friends with you kind of thing. Or if you don't change, then I'm going to leave you kind of thing. Because again, you cannot force other people to take the personal development journey, their own personal development journey, one, if they don't want to, or two, at the same rate and pace that you are at. You just have to start talking and communicate. And at the same time, you need to understand that these conversations have outcomes and you need to be prepared for them. It's super important to say compassionately the things that you are experiencing, knowing that the outcome might not be something that you are going to like or that's going to feel good, because some people will meet you with curiosity and they'll start asking you questions about like, oh, what it is that you're doing, and like get invested in it and want to take their own journey. Like maybe they've never been exposed to personal development. They've never been exposed to a conversation like this, and you are the first person that speaks to them like that. That can spark their curiosity and they're like, oh, well, if you're seeing the world in a different light and like maybe you're thinking more positively and like changing your energy, like I want to know what you're doing. So that can be an outcome, right? Some people can meet you with that curiosity. Great. Some people are going to feel threatened, unfortunately. And I say threatened because some people will feel like they don't want to go on this journey and you're forcing them, or like it's an area that they're not interested in. And so they feel like you are coming at this feeling like you're better than them. So they feel threatened and they'll put a guard up. And that, my friends, is okay. That you need to be prepared for that outcome. Other people are going to minimize your growth. And I think that comes hand in hand with the people that feel threatened. I see it all the time. I still see it all the time with my own experience, with my own journey. I see it with my friends and their spouses. I see it with my friends and other friends, where when you express what you're feeling, what you're going through, how you're thinking, how your mindset has shifted, there can be a pushback and them minimizing the growth that you've done by saying, oh, that's too much. It could be as subtle as saying like, oh, really? That's weird. Well, I've never heard of that. Huh. Comments like that, minimizing all of the work that you have done, could be something that you are met with when you start to have these conversations. And again, you need to be prepared for that. And obviously the one that none of us want to experience, but all of us who have been on a personal development journey and have outgrown spaces have dealt with, is people drifting quietly. That was one of the biggest and hardest things for me to deal with in the last almost 3 years now of personal development and growth, and like outgrowing these spaces and outgrowing my circles, is seeing the friendships that once were so close, so sacred, so safe, drift away quietly. We're still friends and like on paper essentially, and we can chat with each other when we see each other, but there's no more hangouts, there's no more conversations on the phone, there's no more voice notes, there's it's just no animosity, no anger, no nothing, just a quiet drift away. And you do have to be prepared for that if you embark on this personal development journey, because That is something that could happen and most likely will. Not everyone in your circle, not everyone around you is going to evolve or want to evolve. Like I said before, some people are never going to take a personal development journey. That's just not something that they're interested in. And they will just continue to repeat life the way that they are living and don't care to do that. And that's not your responsibility. But it is an outcome that can happen, and it is painful when it does happen because you still kind of, are sad for that happening, but at the same time know that you don't want to stay like that. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just your own personal journey. How someone responds to how you communicate or to your growth or your personal development journey tells you everything that you need to know. And I think that's a hard pill for a lot of us to swallow because we want to find an answer to people's actions or reactions. And we try and justify a lot of this if it's someone that we love, like trying to justify a spouse not being supportive or trying to justify a spouse not understanding personal development or something that you want to embark on because, but they just love me, and they just don't get it. And unfortunately, their actions and reactions will tell you everything you need to know about you outgrowing that space. Now, when that growth leads to the cost of people around you, it's how do I say this? It's a grief that a lot of people don't like to talk about because it's painful, and it's not a grief of you like missing a person because they're no longer physically in this world. It's a grief of the loss of a friendship, a spouse, whatever type of relationship. And you need to let yourself mourn that without running back. Because the thing is, because they're still in this life physically, hopefully, you can run back to that person. You can then start to dim yourself or dim your light or go back to old patterns and ways because the pain of outgrowing them and realizing that they are no longer going to be part of your life if they so choose or if you choose, that can cause you to run back to that person. But you need to understand that if you are on a personal development journey, it's because you were called to do that. You were called to elevate yourself. So just let yourself mourn the loss of friendships, the loss of a partner, the loss of whatever in your process of elevating yourself. You can miss people dearly, because I do. I can tell you that right now. I miss some friends very, very dearly, but I refuse to go backwards. And those two things can be true. You can miss people and still not go back to that energy. You can appreciate who they are and who they were in your life without forcing them into your future, without forcing them to do personal development like you are. Grief isn't just about losing people in real life. And you know what I mean about that. Grief is also about releasing the versions of yourself that no longer fit the group of people that you are surrounding yourself with. That's deep, right? And I just want you to know, like, I know this episode might feel a little heavy, but it's something that's on my heart because I've experienced this multiple times in the last couple years, and the questions in my DMs right now are mostly about this. Like, hey, I've been watching you, I see that your energy is shifting, I really love it. Or I've gotten, oh, you've changed so much, like I don't even recognize who you are. And like, my answer to that lovingly is thank God for that. I don't want to be the person I was 5 years ago. I always want to keep evolving. I always want to keep growing. And if that means outgrowing certain people, then I have just realized and come to that moment in my life where it's like, then so be it. Is it painful? Is it painful? Yes. Is there a grieving process because I care about the person so much? Yes. But I want you to understand that this season of outgrowing people is a season that often comes before alignment. Guys, 3 years ago, I was in this season very deeply. Outgrowing people, outgrowing circles, outgrowing friends. So deeply in that season. And now 3 years later, and hopefully for you, it doesn't take 3 years, but for me, it was a lot of shedding. It was a lot of outgrowing different spaces that I was in. It was outgrowing different mindset, different priorities. All of that came in those 3 years. And now 3 years later, I can tell you, I feel more aligned than in my life. I feel more empowered to have these tough conversations with people. Even if I have to shed tears, that's no longer something that holds me back. I feel so strong in the stance that I have in terms of personal development and protecting my energy and protecting my heart and those of my children because I'm a mom, that it literally feels like full alignment season. And I want you to get to this. I want you to listen to this podcast, and if you're in that space of like grieving these people and not understanding how to move forward, that hopefully you can understand that you just have to keep going because there is alignment at the end of this. And I say the end, I mean the end of the season of outgrowing people, which by the way comes in cycles, okay? It comes in cycles because right now I'm in another season of outgrowing groups, but because I've already done this work and known how to, and now I know how to deal with them and how to communicate, it is far more, I don't want to say quick, but easier in a sense to outgrow the spaces. It no longer brings me the same level of grief because I know that it's not about me. It's not about me, which means I cannot push people to evolve, to do personal development at the same rate that I do. Okay? You need to look at this season as you creating space for new friendships, for deeper connections, creating space for better relationships that can meet you where you are instead of trying to pull you to the level that they are at. Expansion, my friends, requires room, which means that you are going to outgrow people if you are expanding. Okay? The people around you also have energy. We are all energy. People around you either rise to your level of energetic frequency or you drop down to theirs. That's a decision you have to make. And what I am telling you is never drop down to the energy of people that are not aligned with you. You can still love them, but don't dim your light. Because honestly, if you feel like you don't fully belong anywhere right now, which I know some of you have told me, like, I just feel like I don't belong. Some of you have even said you don't feel like you belong at home. Okay, that doesn't mean that you're lost. It just means that you're in a transition period. And that transition period, here's the thing. That transition period doesn't mean that you have to get a divorce or separate from your partner, because a lot of these conversations are with partnerships, okay? And in your friendships, that transition period doesn't mean that you are no longer going to be friends with any of your friends that you're with right now because you feel like you don't belong in that. Because again, the different outcomes from the different people can all happen. There are people that are going to go with you. There are people that you are going to inspire to also take this journey because they're watching you take the journey and you changing. That transition period can be and will be beautiful if you allow it. So I just want to ask you, where are you shrinking to stay connected? I think that's really hard to answer for some people because most of us will not want to admit that we're shrinking ourselves. But if you put on some music, put on some meditation music, take out your journal, start writing, you can answer this question. Where are you shrinking to stay connected? And who are you becoming? In that process, who are you afraid to disappoint because of it? Like, you ask yourself, who am I becoming? Who do I see in 5 years that I am? And who am I afraid to disappoint by becoming that version of me? Is it your brother? Is it your sister? Is it your mom? Is it your dad? Is it your spouse? Is it your close friends? Is it your best friend? Is it your kids? And what would change if you trusted that growth doesn't have to cost you your kindness? You can still be kind. And you can still treat people with love and approach these situations with a heart full of love and joy and respect for others while also standing in the self-respect that you deserve. I hope that this episode brought you guys some insight and some light. I know it's kind of all over the place. My head's all over the place. Maybe because I'm stuffy. I'm sorry. But at the same time, like, I want you to understand if you are on this journey, and we've talked about this in the DMs, like, if you are on this journey of personal development, it's not an easy journey, but it is a beautiful one. Immerse yourself in personal development books. Immerse yourself with courses and seminars and breath work and all of the different modalities that allow you to open up your heart and to start looking for that expansion. And know that in that expansion, you are going to have to sometimes create the room for it. And it's okay. I hope that this served you. I hope that you got something from this episode. If you did, message me and let me know. I would love to know your opinions on all of this. And if there's any topic that you guys want me to bring to the table or bring to our podcast here, I'm more than happy to listen to that and bring you things that are in my heart. So have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you when we see you.